start by saying from New Zealand, kia ora. Ko Simon McCallum aho. So my name's Simon McCallum, and I will make myself in the bottom corner here. My name's Simon McCallum. I'm living here in Dunedin in New Zealand. So I will be the lecturer for this course. I am remote. I was in Norway for a month earlier this year, so over just before summer break. We have a tutor, Napuna Weratonga. Is that how you say it? So, Bruna, can you jump on the Discord and say hello? The Twitch can't hear you quite yet. I will just see if I can get the desktop audio to click in. So you're gonna have to properties. Let's go with the speakers and go okay. So say hello again.
Hi everyone. So I'm Nipuna Veeratunga. So I will be the tutor for the course. And looking forward to meeting all of you during the lab sessions and even around the university. Yeah.
And I can probably grab, like, weirdly, I think if I put you there and then move you there, I can have you on the big screen. And if I get rid of the chat, there we go. There's Napuna.
Okay. Hi everyone.
So yes, so this is very kind of meta at this point. Okay, so Napuna is the in-person representative, right? Because I'm so far away, I can only engage you through the camera and through audio and video and on Discord and chat with you that way. And it's useful to have an in-person representation. So Napuna will be on site to help you with things in person, and because this is a capstone, is a game project based course. Each of you will be doing slightly different projects, and so we can't necessarily be expert on everything you're doing. So it's more about sort of guiding and helping, and giving someone to have feedback from, and those sort of things. Okay, so don't expect Napuna to know everything about everything. In fact, don't expect me to know everything about everything, but we'll do our best. Okay, so hopefully you're in the right room. This is game programming. We're going to try and improve your game programming ability and your general programming ability. The more programming you do, the better you get at programming. The more problems you solve, the better you get at working out problems and working out how to solve them systematically and accurately. And with games, it's one of the few areas where we really care about all parts of computer science. We care about storage, we care about usability, we care about speed, we care about security, we care about networking, we care about all of the aspects of development, and so it's a good way of finding the things you don't quite remember from your degree and working out, oh, I need to add those. I also consider it good prep for the bachelor project, right? Because the first time you do something, it's usually not the best time you do it, right? So if you get practice with a long project in a group working together, that's good practice for moving on and being good in the bachelor next year. So a little bit of background about me. So yes, as I said, I'm Simon McCallum. The cartoon avatar of me that you see up there, that you'll find floating around the internet in various places but that's pretty much always me when you see that. That was drawn for me as my first game developer image in the first game company I worked for when I came to Norway. So that's me as a game developer. I got my degree from Otago University, which is here in Dunedin, and I then worked at Otago before becoming a game developer and ending up teaching in Gjøvik after teaching in Atlanta, and we then eventually merged with NTNU. I currently lecture full time at Victoria University in Wellington, so this is additional to that. I also have an adjunct position at CQU and a consultancy called Ludogogy, which is a mix of Ludo for games and pedagogy for learning. So Ludogogy. You can also see I've got some other weird images around here. So this one directly above me there, that is me as a working on building traction trebuchets. So one of my hobbies is to build trebuchets, and so that one is I think that one's one of the ones in Hammer. We also built one in Denmark at the Mediality Centre there. So I haven't built one for a few years now because I've come back to New Zealand, but I built a bunch when I was in Norway. And this environment around me here, this is the VR lab that I help set up in Trondheim at Ekaterina's educational VR lab, and I do a bunch of VR stuff, and I have VR equipment hanging around. So we have oh, it disappears. So we have MetaQuests and we have the Vive Pro and stuff. So I do VR stuff, and in the top corner over there, that is me as an extra in Lord of the Rings. So as a typical New Zealander, I got to be a wild man in the second movie of Lord of the Rings, where they put two kids on a horse and it rides away from a village. I'm one of the wild men burning down that village, right? So I'm a bad guy in Lord of the Rings. So, yep, I've done a whole bunch of weird stuff, and I'm still doing a whole bunch of weird stuff. My PhD is in artificial intelligence, and so recently I've been doing a lot of work around generative AIs, vibe coding, language interpretation using AIs in game development and in education. I also have, as I said, worked commercially as a game developer, but I teach a lot of games for health and games for education. So I'm also have a really interest in how we use games to do good. Okay, so what are we going to do with you guys? This is a project course, right? So I want you to work on a game in a group. Now, the plan is to work in groups of 4 to 6. We're going to develop a game over the next 4 months, so it's due in December. And I would like you to try and draw together aspects of the degree you've been working on. So draw together AI, draw together graphics, draw together design patterns, usability, networking, multiplayer, and anything else that you can use from your degree. If you're doing the mobile course, maybe we can make your game a mobile game. So drawing together whatever it can be to extract as much value as possible. I would like you to start working as much as professionals as possible. So I want you to write relatively good code. Hopefully, moving into this last year of university, we're starting to get to the point where you're not programming just to get it to work. You're programming to get it to have code that's understandable, right? So you can choose between a for loop and a while loop, knowing that they're identical from the assembly point of view, but they mean different things to other developers, right? So it's about moving away from how do I get this to work to which way should I make this work, right? So it's that deeper choice that you make as a professional that is saying, well, what will be the higher quality of code I'm making? What will have the lowest technical debt rather than just can I get it to work at all? I fully expect to be using a lot of version control, so you must use Git. You'll be sharing your development, so I will be looking at what you're developing as you develop it, because I can't give you good feedback unless I can see what you're doing. So I expect to see progress through the next 4 months of you working together, and I expect there to be issues being created, and I expect to be able to potentially add some issues to your project myself, to say, hey, I think your group needs to add this to the project. Right? We'll be grading milestones to ensure progress. Right? So, however, I'm not setting exactly what or when those milestones are. In each of your groups, you will be setting those milestones, because they are a commitment from me to give you feedback about your progress. Right? So we're going to set some milestones, and you'll decide how far you're going to get. Now, part of that is how I've done this in the past, but also it's becoming more and more important as AI starts coming through and people are using AI to code instead of thinking themselves. Now, you can use AI to code and be thinking yourself at the same time. But what that means from my perspective as a lecturer is that I can only get you to learn the things you want to learn. Because if I set you a task and you don't want to learn it, then you can just use AI to do that, and I can't tell that you've used AI, so I don't know that you haven't learned. Now, what am I supposed to do about that, right? How am I supposed to interact when I can't force you to do what I want? And it sounds, well, you're here, you turned up, fabulous, Monday morning, excellent first day back from summer break, you're all a bit tired. You're here, right? Which is fabulous, right? And the idea that you are here because you want to learn something cool, right? And my job is to make you want to learn things and not see me as the barrier. Why is there a 25 cap on the lecture room? Because that's the Discord video cap, which I can't extend, I believe. I can, I have, I've got, I'm on level 1, right, because I've already boosted the server, but I don't believe the server boost, even if I go to 5 server boosts, that I actually get more people simultaneously streaming. So unfortunately, I think even at level 3 boost, they don't give you more than 25. Normally this class isn't quite 25 people, so that's unfortunately why there is a limit on the streaming. Sorry about, there's nothing I can change about that. So yes, I have tried. But I am streaming to Twitch, and I am looking at the emojis coming up in Twitch. So there are emojis, you can talk to me in Twitch. So Discord and Twitch combined gives you the interaction, hopefully. Let's see, how many do we have in the Twitch channel? Well, we've got 10 or 15 in the Twitch channel. Good evening, everyone in Twitch. Fabulous to see you all. Okay, so I can't force you to learn, so I have to make you want to learn. Now, you know, I'm going to try and engage you, and I'm going to try and make games fun, because games are fun. But yes, realistically, we have to get you engaged and drive you forward by showing you what's possible and encouraging you to learn and dig and pull things apart and understand how they work, and have joy in thinking about how to get things to work. Right. So that's going to be part of my job, is to make this more enjoyable. Now, as you can see here, I have my 6 animal model, which is a 6 avatar animal model, where I use role playing in style of role playing game to define the communications in the groups. So we're gonna have that. We'll send you the videos to watch. You'll be picking your animals, and then we'll assign groups and we'll assign communication roles to try and make the group part of this work better. One of the biggest challenges at universities that I've seen is people hate group work because groups don't communicate well and groups don't work well together. So I'm going to drive hard on improving the quality of group work, and we'll have a big group sign up sheet and make sure that everybody's in a group that hopefully is working on a game you want to work on, and you know how to communicate with other people. And if things go wrong, you can do what some of my students in New Zealand just did, which is escalate it to me and say, hey Simon, can you join one of our meetings, because one of our group members isn't showing up and we need to get them to start participating or kick them out of the group. Right, so I will treat it like a professional group, and if you stop turning up to work, then you get moved out of a group. Okay, so now this is an online course, because it's one of the 4 courses you're doing a week. You kind of expect to be doing about 10 hours. I would expect that to be 2 hours on these Monday mornings. At the moment, it's 8 till 10 here in New Zealand. It'll then become 9 till 11, and then by the time we get to full winter, it'll be 10 till midnight. So that'll shift for me, but it'll stay at 10 till 12 for you guys. We'll work you'll work synchronously as a team, potentially 1 to 2 hours a week on Discord. And by synchronously, I mean meeting in a room on Discord and talking to each other and meeting up and discussing things. And I want to be able to know when that's happening, because I will try, depending on the week, to drop into some of those synchronous meetings to catch up with you. Some of these lecture times, and certainly the last part of the lecture and the moving into after 12, can be some of that time, right? So though once it's midnight, staying up past midnight starts to be a bit, I'm not as useful to you. So that would suggest that you've used 4 of your 6 hours, so that you are working another 6 hours on the project outside of that. It's perfectly reasonable to try and make that all synchronous time. So you just schedule time on Discord and pop open your Discord channel and start working and share your screen. And if one of your other group members happens to be working at the same time, they jump in to the channel, they share their screen, so everybody's sharing their screen in your Discord room or on your Discord server, so you can see what other people are doing. You don't have to be talking to each other. You can just have the streams open, and when you're struggling with a problem, you can kind of look across and see what they're working on, right? Just to see what's happening in other parts of the game, right? So I want this to be fairly heavily collaborative. I'm going to give you lectures on working and collaborative editing. There are a lot of skills to develop in this space of remote working. Don't leave all the work to the last couple of weeks. You don't learn as much if you do that, right? And you don't get as good a game to take away as a portfolio piece and show to people. My main focus here is to help you learn, not to accredit you. One of the things that we're looking at here in New Zealand is the collapse of the employment market. So my graduates who are graduating in October, or sort of November, we are worried that the job market looks pretty dire for those students. And so for my game students, what we're working on is a whole bunch of business plans. Some of them are going to make their own companies until they can find work, and they're going to take the games they're making and the game they've made through their degree and start looking at how they publish those, while they're looking for work. Right? And so I've increased the amount of business content in that course so that I can help them get work. In this course, you have the possibility of developing something interesting, something that either might get you a job in a game company, or that you could potentially look at releasing and using as a start of a small business, for example. Right? So I want to give you guys options, but we can only really do that if you buy in and you work hard and you try and create something cool. Okay. So if we have a look at the minimum requirements for the course, we are to improve some type of programming, right? So or dot dot dot, right? So improve programming, improve version control, improve your understanding of graphics in games, so understanding how rendering works or how shadows work, doing some bump mapping and texture mapping. If you're using Unreal, this then becomes the Lumen system, and you don't actually do bump mapping and texture. You do texture mapping, but you don't do bump mapping, and they want you to minimize texture mapping because now they do modeling and use the engine to do level of detail compaction of high quality models. So you don't use large data textures and move them around. You actually model things. So there are understanding how that works is important. We'll talk about physics and collisions. We'll talk about AI networking, AI techniques and scripting, programming patterns, and other stuff that is going to be useful to you. I want you to have a better understanding of game programming, the process of game development, understanding clarity of what you're doing over speed of getting it done, some networking stuff, some multi-threading stuff, some physics, special effects, learning to communicate with other programmers, bunch of stuff. This is potentially my most contentious slide. This is the written description of what your grades mean. Okay, so an A for excellence is an excellent performance, clearly outstanding. The candidate demonstrates excellent judgment and a high degree of independent thinking. What that means is that the B, very good, is the maximum grade you can get for just doing what you're told. Right? If you do everything I tell you to do perfectly, the maximum grade I will give you is a B. This is not, why did I get a B? What did I lose from the A? It's no. You did everything right. You got your B because that's everything right. You didn't do something of high degree of independent thinking. You didn't go above and beyond what was the minimum requirement, right, of doing everything I told you to do. Right? So this is not a compliance-based course, because compliant games aren't fun games. Right? You need to push, you need to come up with your own things, you need to go beyond what is the specification and actually think for yourselves. Okay, so that's how you get an A in this course. If you make a good game doing what I've told you to do, then the B, you can get a good grade. And good performances. If you've got a reasonable game or a slice of a game, and you've shown that you've created stuff, then you can get the D and the C. The satisfactory is it needs to be a game, might not be entirely fun, might have some shortcomings, might not have implemented everything fully, so there'll be some things missing, but you've done an okay job. And you've talked about what you've learnt, and you've clearly developed as a programmer and developed as a developer. And sufficient, you can get an E in this course if you are not putting in enough work and you're not learning enough. And I will fail you if you do not participate with your group. Right? I'll warn you before I fail you, right? Because I shouldn't fail you without warning you, but I'll warn you that your group participation is starting to fall, and you're starting to get to the point where if it continues the way it is, you will fail the course. Okay, so understand that this is not going to be a group work where you can hide and still get the group mark, because I'm not doing group marking. This is all individual marking. I will grade you individually, right, on your contribution to the group. Right, so that's how I'm thinking of this marking. Do we have any other questions? Any questions so far? It all makes sense. Want you to learn. Hopefully you will put effort in. Okay. Silence on a Monday morning. Who could have thought? So, potential technologies. So we're going to be doing, I've used Unreal, I've used Godot, I've used Unity 3D, I've done a little bit of Corona, and I've done a bit of Pixie and Phaser, which is kind of built on top. A long time ago, I did some Tortoise 2D, I did some Ogre, I've done a bunch of OpenGL. I used to teach the OpenGL course. Actually, I'll just see. Can I get myself behind the slides? Is that going to... Nope, that's just going to make me disappear. Can I add in... Nope, that's not quite the right one. That made everything disappear, and that's not the best way. Nope, not like that. Can I? Nope, and nope. Nope, none of these are currently working. Okay, so I'll just turn that off. I was just seeing if so there is a way I've set up previously to have myself behind the text so that you can see it through me. But anyway, so we can use libraries. There's mobile technology. Android, I have an account for, which you need a business account for now, so we can do Android stuff. But we can also use emergent stuff. So, lots of potential technologies you can use. Who are the potential employers for what we do? Entertainment, of course, we're making games. We can do education. One of the interesting things is with AI coming through, game development and games are one of the few places where people choose to do complex things, right? And so as I believe he mentioned sheets. How will we get from? Yeah. I actually have like a really big form thing where I create groups. Where you say some of the other people you want to work in, we come up with some game ideas, and in fact, you guys are going to be pitching your games genres, and then you're going to pick based on what games you want to make, and then we're going to get it together. Okay, so we will be getting to the groups. So lots of places we can do this sort of thing. So healthcare, education, as I said, as AI comes through and removes makes it difficult for high schoolers to be taught, because anything you can ask them to do, the AI can do. Basically, we have to choose to think now. And games are one of the only places we do that. So I think games have a massive future in basically keeping people cognitively healthy. There's a bunch of stuff in healthcare and mental health, simulation. There is warfare and gambling. So you guys have Ralphos down the road and North Tipping. So some of my grads have gone over and worked in North Tipping. So, it may not be the most making the world a better place kind of thing to do, but it is employment space. We also have a whole bunch of VR and experimental options, so we can do AR stuff, VR stuff. There's Oculus Quests, there's real data stuff, there's the ambulance simulator. We can try and combine interesting things for you to do, but ideally that is something you are passionate about, and you bring that to the game stuff, and we try and make sure we facilitate that. So I'm going to send out a questionnaire, now we have a slight problem because my contract hasn't actually been rolled over properly. It should be rolled over in the next few days, but at the moment I don't have access to Discord. So Mariusz had to send you the announcement for this lecture, and he will have to send you the announcement for this questionnaire. I'll also put it on Discord in the Discord chat channel, so you'll see it pop up there. We're looking at how we grab player information, how we grab demographic and skill information, and discuss the game types that you want to play. So the first part of the course is going to start by thinking about designing game. So next week's lecture isn't actually me talking, it's you talking. So you will be pitching a game next week. These will be used to form teams interested in the same game or game technology area, right? You are going to create okay, so not everybody, but everybody who wants to make a game that they're interested in, right? This is not graded. It is because you want to encourage people to play the game that you want to make. So everybody who is wanting to pitch will create a 3-minute pitch, and I want you to think about the mechanics and the aesthetics of the game, so that you can sell it to other people. Now I've actually got so in here, if we just go, I created a game pitch how-to and Godot setup. So those will be the ways that you do this. In terms of using AI, so I am happy for you to use AI as much as you like in this course. Use AI to help you learn faster. Use AI to fill gaps in your team. Use AI to give you different perspectives. So don't just ask it for the answer. Ask it for 3 different answers from different perspectives. You can use AI to prepare and practice your communication. Ask it sort of what kind of questions, or ask it to critique your plan. Right? Give you feedback. I want to help you learn how to use AI effectively, so that it's not just replacing you, and to create a learning environment using AI, so that you are still going to benefit from doing this course rather than the AI is benefiting from the course. Now, you don't have to use AI. I understand if some of you are ethically opposed to AI, that's fine. At no point do you need to use AI. It is that if you use AI, I want you to treat it like another group member. So you need to understand how you are contributing to the group, because when we grade you, I'm grading you as to how you've contributed to your group. Now, if you're a C student and you've got an A student in the group, and you do nothing because the A student's better than you, I'm still going to fail you because you didn't contribute. So you can't just go, look, I used the AI and made an amazing game, and see, but what did you do? Did you just write a single prompt, make me an amazing game, and then keep yelling at it, go hard, go longer, go harder, go faster, keep going until it was a game, right? That means that your contribution to the game was not great. Okay, so I need to understand what you are trying to learn, and also support you in that learning. So for next week, now I do actually have a lecture to follow this as well. We're going to have an introduction to games, and I see a couple of people are writing. So what I want you to start doing, and that's basically from today. We've got a question from Eva, which is anything on scope of the project? What would be, you mean like 2D, 3D platformer versus shooter? So interestingly, up until this year, we had a fairly strong push to be 2D because the challenges of 3D. So we did have a couple of groups say, yep, no, we're very keen on doing 3D, and they made 3D games. I have the Cinti store assets that you can use. So we have a whole bunch of assets that are 3D assets. So if you want to do 3D, you can. Because AI is good at solving problems, and you can ask it things, and it can basically be a tutor in the middle of the night. What I found is that people are able to produce a lot more, right? And take on much harder projects because the AI can help them move quickly. Okay, Nipuna, off to your other meeting. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for saying hi at the beginning. Um, so what? So no, I don't actually limit your scope now because we can use Klein and Claude Code to fill in the gaps, right? So stuff that before I would say, well, actually, you need a team of about 10 to do what you're planning to do. I can say, well, yeah, no, you could probably do that now. So no, I'm opening up the top end of the scope for people who are planning to do things using AI to help them get there. If you are planning to do it without using AI, then I would keep the scope much smaller and keep it just a 2D game, possibly with some networking maybe. But yeah, if you are intent to do it in the old way, then you have to keep it quite small. If you're quite happy to use AI and move further and learn different things, not learn more, it's learn different things, right? Because our brains are biological systems and can't change faster than the maximum rate. And so we can't just ram stuff in our brain and hope that it sticks. We actually have to put time and effort into learning, and actually, unfortunately, also emotional investment in what we're doing. And so it requires time and effort and emotional investment. And if you want to learn something, you have to spend time thinking about it. If you don't want to learn it, then absolutely use an AI to implement the things you don't want to learn, right? Because an AI can do it, and then you won't learn it. But then you won't walk away from the course having learned about that thing, right? All you've really learned is that it's possible to do with AI. You won't have learned how to do it. So that's the challenge that I have for all of you, is to start thinking about what you want to learn. Now, as I said, it's an optional development pitch for a game. So the how-to link. Now, these how-to links, they're all in the GitLab repo. So hopefully you all have access to that GitLab repo. Do you all have access to that GitLab repo? Have you gone? Can you go and have a look? I'll put the link in that chat and the link in the Twitch. So hopefully you can go and see that. And that is the hey, excellent. Just making sure you all had access properly. So brainstorming game ideas, and then some thoughts on what a 3-minute kind of sections might look like. Tools to start pitch, looking for things, and then deliverables. Okay, so that is how I want you to make a short 3-minute video. I recommend using OBS Studio, because I use OBS Studio, which is the one I'm using to do all of this. But you know, there are others, and if you wanted to make a video and edit it, there are some additional tools. It can be a live or it can be a video, right? You can just, if you want to go live and just pitch it live, you do 3 minutes of that. If you want to make a video, you can make a video, right? But it's a pitch, either making a video or presenting live next week. I know some of you won't feel comfortable presenting live, so that's why I give the video option. The other thing is that I gave is this Godot Lab setup. So I want you to, now, some of you have probably already made the decision that you want to use Unity, or that you want to use Unreal, or that you want to use Godot. I want you to go through the process of downloading and install. Just put it somewhere. It doesn't actually need to fully install, because it doesn't change your registry, and so it runs from a single exe, so it's actually quite comfortable to just unzip it, and then there's no installation required. But I want you to create a new project, and then I want you to do a few things in Godot, right? Just set up some very simple first game elements, look at the understanding how nodes work, install Visual Studio Code, so you can look at, you know, the extension packs and look at for Godot tools and link Visual Studio to Godot. Do some of those things, because if you're going to make the decision to use Unity, you should have at least looked at Godot. And if you're going to make the decision to use Godot, you should look at Unity or Unreal, right? So I want you to be thinking in an informed way, right? So that gives you a wee kind of setting up Godot to step through, and to kind of start building and developing, and learning a wee bit about Godot and how it looks and how it works, because then you can start making these decisions of get an image on screen and then move that sprite left and right with the A and the D, right? Do that in Unity or Unreal and Godot, right? So Godot and one other engine. Adding a menu screen with a start game button on it. Changing the keyboard entry so the arrow keys work as well as the ASDW, right? So just do a little bit of tinkering in the game engine so that by next week you've got an idea of why you prefer one game engine over another. Okay, so that was going to using up my first 45 minutes. Do we have any questions on that so far? I'll be sending out the survey on skills, but I want you guys to make game ideas and game pitches for next week, so you can try and build a team around a game that you're passionate about making. Question. Okay. I see somebody. Eva's typing in. So, is the point up a question, or is that a pointing up at the repo? We've got a couple of questions coming in. Should I do my ASMR response for the lecture questions? I have threatened to do an entire lecture in ASMR, because if I go really quiet and just whisper my lecture, if it's really early in the morning, then this might be more calming for some of you. How does Yervik Git instance work with Git LFS? I believe Marish has set up Git LFS for that, but I'll have to check with him, because the Git LFS stores large files on a separate hard drive, and so that additional hard drive needs to have the pointers that are stored in the Git repo pointing to those files, and then when you download it, it pulls from that large file rather than just pulling directly from the machine that's running the code. So do we start at 10 or 10:15? We start at 10:15. Where could we find the assets folder? The assets folder. Oh, are you meaning the Cinti Studio assets? Right, okay, so these are actually, you make the request, and if we go and have a look in Cinti Studios, so Cinti Studios are my former students. Linux, perfectly fine. Yep, you can do everything in Linux. That's perfectly reasonable. So Cinti Studios is a company that sells assets. My former student is the CEO of the company, and he said that he gave me access to all of these for free, so long as they're used entirely within a student project. So what we can do is you guys can have a look through here and find a pack that has the content you're interested in, and then if we have a look through, you can see that we have these polygon models. So and those are the kinds of things it has, and then it goes to the actual asset set. There we go. So these are the actual 3D assets that they have with the pack, and so we can download those, and you can use those for 3D or for 2D. Yes, lectures are being recorded. I'm currently recording this. I will put it up. We have to decide whether you want it up on um, YouTube or on Blackboard as I think the Panopto. Um, okay, so I can probably stop doing the ASMR thing, if that's too disturbing for people. But we can, if you want an ASMR, we can always go to that whispering ASMR kind of lecture. Um, so these are the models. I also have, and if I can find it, let's see. Can I find my? I've got a link to I have to find the link. I'll send you a link. It's in the Fab store. Store for Unreal. We have I have my university here is an Unreal partner, but I can use those assets for your games so long as they're a student affiliated game, and so I'll have to check that. But let's see. Yep. And if we have a look at the library, where is the library of my? Nope, not the Unreal Engine. Oh, go away. I've already got the Unreal Engine. It is features licensing. No, where is it? More marketplace. So start exploring. So for the so Epic used to have its own Unreal store for assets. Now it basically bought and combined with Fab, and so in here I have my library of things that I've been collecting over the last few years, and we've got some money that I can use in here. And why am I being asked to Unreal Partner and use my password? Dun, dun, dun. Sign in. Hopefully that won't two-factor authenticate me again. Oh, it does. We can go back to that. So yeah, so I have a list of assets which are in Unreal. So we have a whole bunch of those. If you want some of those, then yeah, go and have a look at Cinti stores. So Unreal can be used for 2D games. It's using the Paper 2D system. Basically, what it is it's you create a 3D world with an ortho camera, potentially looking down on the game, and you just make flat sprites in a 3D world. So it does scaling really well because you just move things up and down, and it's really easy to do pixel-based scaling. And you can absolutely make a 2D game. It's just not really designed for it. It's entirely possible to do. It's just not the best way of doing it. If you're interested in doing a 2D game, I'd do a 2D game in Godot. Okay, so we're going to have a 10-minute break because it's useful for you guys to be able to have a wee break. Is Unreal as heavy as people claim? Yeah, it can absolutely be 100 gig repo. while you're developing, and it requires a reasonably good machine to run if you're going to edit and at in kind of real time for any large game. So yes, it is very hungry. Okay, so we're going to take that 10-minute break. Go grab yourself a cuppa, have a cup of tea, do that sort of thing, and we'll be back at 1:15 for the "What is a Game" lecture. And you can, if you've got questions you're thinking of, then when we get back, we can answer those. Okay, so break for 10 minutes. I'll pause the recording. It's only going to let me stop the recording rather than just pause it. Oh well, I'll cut this out. Okay, I'm going to go grab myself coffee. I'll see you in 8 minutes. So 1:15. All good? Okay. Right. Hello, was someone making noise? Yes, there is someone making noise. Okay, so when grading, determining contribution, is this done by looking at commit histories, or is there more to it? If so, does this mean that we should note down minutes from synchronous work and or other team activities to give a better insight into the collaboration efforts of the team and its members? So I will look at all forms of evidence. So I ask for people to do a review of the contributions of themselves and their team members. I will look at get commits and get history to see the kinds of things that were coming in. I expect there to be branches, and I expect you to use the tools to document what you're doing, as well as writing a report and having discussions with me, right? So I expect people to work well through the semester, and that's why I want to meet with the groups and talk with the groups. This year, for the first time in a long time, I have spent half an hour with each one of my New Zealand students to work out exactly what they want to get out of their final capstone course, because yeah, we really do need to start changing the way we educate, because I need to be a mentor for you and to help you choose to move forward, because I can't force you to learn anything, because there's no assessment I can set, there's no task I can make you do, there's no way I can force you to learn. You have to want this, right? So yeah, this has to be an agreed assessment mechanism, and it has to be something you push yourself, and I will evaluate you for what you learn, but this is not something you're trying to get past me, it's something we do together. Hi, I'm an international student, so I'm wondering how it works to have access to GitLab. I try creating an account and entering your email, but it's pending approval. So yeah, the approval should come. If you create an account and ask for approval, I will go and check to see if Mariusz will do the approval. Will if yeah, I'll try and get it done. I'll see if I can do it after the lecture. I think he made me admin so I could approve people in their approval request. Otherwise, Mariusz will have to do it, and I'll just have to, send an email and harass him until he gets it done. Okay. Any other chat? Nope, looking good. Okay. Shall we go on and talk about what's a game? Okay, great. So, like, you're here to do a game project. Like, it's kind of, wow, I'm going to do game programming. What's a game? So games are really easy to talk about, in the sense we all know what games are, but it's really hard to define exactly what they are, because like games are older than computers. We've all played games, tags, football, soccer, Counter-Strike, World of Warcraft, Mario, Pokemon. Like when you're a kid, you played games, lots of games. So we all know what a game is, but how do you actually define what is a game? So we generally have a whole bunch of characteristic features that we think contribute to what a game is. Right? Now, when we're thinking of a definition, we tend to think of we tend to define this as being things that are necessary for something to be a game, and things that are sufficient, or the collection of things that are sufficient to make something a game. Okay, now, so a necessary thing are all the things that you absolutely have to have. If you don't have them, you're not a game. Sufficient is that anything with that set of features, usually a set of features, is what we call a game. Now, we also have the idea, so necessary and sufficient, we also have this idea of prescriptive and descriptive. Okay, so prescriptive is where when we define something, we tell you what it means, and descriptive means any way anyone uses this word is we're going to have to describe all of that set, right? So, for example, Snakes and Ladders is not a game. That would be a prescriptive definition, right? Because I'm saying, like, I'm defining game to mean Snakes and Ladders is not part of it. However, I'm sure if you go down to Norley, you'll find that Snakes and Ladders is next to the other games. So what do we do about that, right? So that would be a descriptive definition. As a professional game developer, we have a professional definition of what a game is, and that professional definition would not include Snakes and Ladders. But we recognize that in the general public, they don't use the word in the technical sense, and so we have to understand that when they refer to games, they refer to a wider range of things. So when we discuss what makes up a game, we have to think, what are the core things? Now, I thought, this is a slide where I'd written down a whole bunch of stuff. It was supposed to be a bit more interactive than not show all those, and I don't know why the animation got killed when I was doing the update, but this should have been animated and you wouldn't have seen all of these, and I would have been able to ask you the question, what's in a game? But we can go through and talk about these. So, interactive, right? So one of the differences between a story and a game is that you interact with a game, right? There's some sort of core loop, there's some I do something and the game responds and changes based on what I did. Some part of the game, some state in the game I am interacting with. All right? Feedback. When I do something, there is feedback to me that I did that. Right? And there's feedback that is related to the choices that I've made. It's that there is interaction, which allows me to choose different things, and I get feedback. There's some sort of interface. Do you have to have an interface? I mean, even an audio game, right, where you're talking with Alexa, because when Alexa first came out, Amazon ran a few game jams to be audio-only games where you play games with the Alexa, so the interface was a voice interface. Still an interface, so that's probably still necessary. But it's not particularly interesting. It's just, you need to have some way of interacting with the game. Rules. A game with no rules isn't a game, it's a toy, right? It's a thing you play with. It's not something that we would call a game, right? So, interaction, feedback, interface, rules. Now we start getting into some of the weirder ones. One of the things we talk about is lowered consequences. The idea that a game is something where your actions don't have the same level of stress or impact that you would if this was work or war or a task you were doing to earn money, so your profession. So we usually refer to things as games when there's a lowered consequence. Now, some people might argue that things like the Olympic Games therefore aren't games because there aren't lowered consequences. So what are people's thoughts? Does it have to have lowered consequences for you guys to still call it a game? And can you think of any other situation where you might call it a game, even though there are significant consequences? Can you think of somewhere where there's significant consequences? I'll wait for some chats. Gambling? Yes, yep, gambling has money. That would be one. Is there another? So we get at least one vote for gambling. Can we think of another one? Twitch or Discord, either one. Is Sarah going to guess one? Can I repeat the question? The question is, are there other scenarios where there are lowered consequences, right? Or in this case, not lowered consequences, where we still might consider it a game? Where the consequences of your play are important. So gambling's one of them. Clash Royale. In certain ways, esports. Yes, that's what I was looking for. So esports. Is esports still playing games, or is that now professional sports and something different? So are they games? So is football a game until you start having professional football where it becomes a sport? So there's this kind of where do we go on that? Voluntary. Do we have meaningful distinction between sports and games here? Potentially one of the differences is that you might define sports as having professional leagues or having higher consequences than games. However, we still don't consider chess a sport, even though it is you can be having prize money and professional. So unfortunately, doesn't quite get there. Because there are games that are definitely what we call games. And we call them the Olympic Games, which are a collection of sports. So it's just a fuzzy word. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a clear distinction. Voluntariness. So do we think that all games are voluntary? And if it's not voluntary, it's not a game. What do people think about voluntariness? Do we think voluntariness is required because if you're being forced to do it, it can't be a game? Or do you think it's still a game, it's just a game you're being forced to play? What are people's thoughts? Because we kind of have the same question around the word fun. Side quest versus main story. Ooh, that's a side quest versus the main story. I'm thinking more voluntary than that. So the side quests are voluntary, and you're playing the main game, but you're not being forced to play the game. Usually, we think of if you're being forced to do something, it's either work or slavery, right? And even if it's technically a game you're playing, if you're being forced to do it, we wouldn't call it a game anymore. It's now a task, right? Or a job, right? Or a punishment. So potentially what might be considered a game based on all the other features, if you take the voluntary choice away, potentially it becomes torture or punishment or work or a task or something other than a game. Right? Now, for fun, however, we might say that, it's still a game. It's just a bad game if it's not fun, right? Or it's a bad game if it's not engaging. If you're addicted, right? Is it no longer a game? It is now part of your kind of, mental health, right? So it's an activity that's no longer voluntary, and so you're not really gaming anymore. You're now feeding the beast, right? You are feeding your addiction rather than actually playing a game. Daily quests, they start to not feel very voluntary. It starts to feel like you're trapped. And so I think it starts not feeling like a game anymore. And so there is something in this voluntariness and potentially lower consequences. Um, games provide experiences. Um, it's common for games to have a goal, but and you may or may not decide that you need a goal. So, for example, the sandbox Minecraft, is sandbox Minecraft a game or is it a toy? Because often we'll make a distinction between games and toys based on, do they have a goal? Games we usually think of as having some sort of goal along with the rules, but that sandbox, is that a counterexample? Can you think of other games, maybe The Sims, which was a sandbox game, which might be a digital toy rather than a game? Now, we might decide that Snakes and Ladders isn't a game, Sims is a digital toy, Minecraft is digital Lego. It's not a game, it's a toy. It's just an open world building toy. It's made a game when you have objectives or when you're trying to get something or when you've got a goal. That turns a toy into a game in the same way that the rules of football turn a soccer ball into a game. So the toy is the ball and the game is the rules and objective around the toy. Right? So we kind of have to think of, like, when we say we're doing game development, are we making digital toys? What kind of experiences are we creating? So I would say entertaining or fun is common, but a game without fun, or actually you can have games that aren't fun but that are interesting and engaging, or thought-provoking. There's a game on the Children of Sarajevo, which is a game about escaping a civil war. And there's the My Child Levensborn, which is a game about raising a Levensborn child. These are not fun games, but they're very engaging and they're an interesting experience. So you don't have to be fun to be a game. And even if you are trying to be fun and you fail, you're still a game. You're just a bad game, right? So I don't want you to necessarily think of defining a game to say, I'm only going to define good games, and so anything that's not a good game I'm going to say isn't even a game. It's kind of, no, that's not fair. It's still a game. It's just a bad game. Objective to survive. Yeah, you could have in Minecraft. You can have the objective to survive. So and maybe The Sims as well, but it's very loose objective at that point. I know. Yeah. It's. I had seen someone describe everything as PvE, so player versus environment, and golf as a PvE game where you're trying to beat the environment, and it's kind of the environment's not really doing anything to you. It's not really an end objective. So yeah, it doesn't end. And monetization, I kind of think of that as orthogonal to games. So some games have monetization, some games don't. It's kind of, you can monetize any game or not, right? So I don't think of that as being particularly directly connected. My father defined games as trivial things. So he was wondering why I was teaching game development, because why am I teaching students to make trivial things? And it's kind of, well, I'm not sure all of these things are trivial, right? So Fortnite isn't trivial. Certainly, Space Invaders might be trivial, but you know, Fortnite and Clash Royale is not trivial. They are complex and they're strategic, and you have to think. And they have interaction, choice, feedback, objectives, rules, boundaries, and they're voluntary. right? So these are some of those core features that we that I think we would come up with. Okay, being a good game is often about finding a balance between things, right? So it's not like a book where you guide everything. You actually have to have people making choices. And for people to make choices, you have to balance things. You have to find a balance between sort of luck and skill. So there are some games of zero luck. So chess, for example, is a game of zero luck. And I would say Snakes and Ladders is a game of zero skill. Right? There is no skill involved because you make no choices. It is entirely luck. Right? So in the skill to luck spectrum, once you have zero skill, you're no longer a game, because you're entirely luck. But you can still be a game if you're 100% skill. But there are reasons why being 100% skill based might not be as enjoyable. Right? So we tend to look at when and why randomness occurs, and we'll have a whole lecture on how to balance randomness because it's such a critical aspect of game development. The illusion of skill, absolutely. We put in a huge illusion of skill. And actually, that some people would argue that Snakes and Ladders has the illusion of skill because people think that by thinking hard, they can roll a dice and it'll come up with what they were hoping the dice roll would be, which tends to be the illusion of the ability to manipulate randomness. And yeah, no, there's some of the FIFA games felt like the illusion of skill. I know there was one stage where the FIFA games, I was the worst player on the field, and so what I'd do is I'd go and grab the player with the lowest stats, and I'd run them to the corner and let the AI play the rest of the game because it was better than me at every aspect of the game. And then they changed the game so that the human player got a boost in speed, and their AI started passing like shit. So then you had to actually play. The random matchmaking in chess is luck. No, that's not luck. That is that. That's what you might call a meta, right? So the meta might have some luck involved, but the game itself doesn't, right? So yeah, in the same way that you can look at the Olympics is a game that countries play, right? Whereas, so the individual sports are individual athletes competing in a sport, but what the countries are doing is they're defining what sports they're going to spend funding on, how they're going to train athletes, how much resource they give athletes. So, and they're trying to get a high score in the number of medals they get. And so the country is playing the game of the Olympics, whereas each individual sport are people competing in an individual sport. Right? So you kind of got two layers of gaming, which is why I also consider the Olympics as a gamification of sports, and it's a gamification played by countries, right? Which is an interesting kind of way of thinking of what we mean by games and sports and gamification. Skill issues. Dexterity versus cognition. So are you a Twitch shooter or are you like Go, right? So how much is this is your Twitch speed versus your depth of thinking? So that's, again, different games fall in different spaces. And real time versus turn based, right? So is this something that you are doing synchronously and you have to allocate all the time right away to, or is this something you can roll out over a longer period of time? Can I get an idea of how many of you play Minecraft? Do we have Minecraft players out there? Because my son's currently running a server from our house, so I was just wondering whether or not we should spin up a Minecraft server and play some Minecraft stuff. Okay, so we've got a couple of Minecraft players. We might play with some. We might do some Minecraft stuff during the trimester. I've got quite a few. Haven't played in a while, but yeah, there are a bunch of Minecraft players. Maybe we should set up a Minecraft server and we can play with them, doing some interesting things in Minecraft. I had a group, Bachelor Uppgabe group, work on Minecraft maps and building Minecraft maps of real locations and things. So we can play with some of those. Okay, so when I was talking about making games, and I talked about the mechanics and the aesthetics, there is a whole framing of game development where we look at it as aesthetics, dynamics, and mechanics. So the aesthetics are what the player sees, right? So the player sees the aesthetics and the dynamics. So they see the aesthetics and they interact with the dynamics. The graphic artists tend to work on the aesthetics of the game, and the game designers work a little bit on the aesthetics as well. The dynamics are the interaction between the player and the mechanics. So the mechanics of the game are the underlying things that can be done, and the dynamics are the way in which those mechanics interact with the play styles and the aesthetics and make certain actions possible. And so the programmers and the designers work on the mechanics and the dynamics, and you generally have sort of the artists working on the front end of the aesthetics. Some people extend the aesthetics into the feeling of the game itself, which becomes more like the dynamics. But there's this idea of low-level rules, the interaction of the rules with the players, which become, this is where the metas happen, right, is in dynamics, whereas the underlying actions you can take tend to be defined as the mechanics. And that's where you have the programmer and the diner working on those. So I want you, when you design your game, to think about, you won't necessarily know all the dynamics, but you can try and talk about some of the mechanics and some of the aesthetics. Okay. So when we talk about how the game feels and how it looks as dynamics, the interaction of the rules with the player, how the meta system works, and the mechanics of the rules, the objectives, and the agents and objects and the underlying game system. Okay, so you can think of these as kind of different layers of your game. When we look at games, we also have to understand how they're represented. So this could be the representation of a chess game. We could represent the moves that are being made. We could represent the chess board as a straight 2D chess board with iconic characters, or you could have Alien versus Predator. So these become full visual representation, but the underlying mechanics of this game are all identical. Okay. You can have games that have no digital representation, but have an action that. So this is hopefully this Rochambeau, rock paper scissors. You all have played rock paper scissors, I'm assuming. Assuming you've all played rock paper scissors. So you can define rock paper scissors. Oh, never. Oof. Good. You'll learn something new. So the idea here is that this is a totally balanced system, too balanced in fact, right? Because there is no benefit in any one of the actions because they are all identical. So that they beat one other action, they draw with one action, and they lose to one action, right? So paper beats rock, rock ties with rock, and rock beats scissors, right? So you see rock and rock is tied. Paper, the top side, wins over rock. Scissors loses to rock. And so you have one win and one loss, which gives you 3 all. You can also do this one, which is that one, which is rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock. And you can see that again, it now, instead of beating one, losing one, each one of these beats 2, loses to 2, and ties with itself. Right? So very, very balanced games. And we'll talk about balancing games, and we'll talk about rock paper scissors, and we'll have you play some rock paper scissors game, and we'll start changing the rules and show you why asymmetry matters in games, right? And making interesting choices requires both understanding the opponent as well as understanding your options. If we go to the kind of core of what we think games are, they are defined by their rules. Right, so when we're looking at chess and we're looking at the representations, a rock paper scissors game could be a pen coffee light game. Right, if the rules are all the same, then it's the same game. Right, the aesthetic doesn't matter for whether it is that game or not, right? So the chess representation, the fact that it's Alien versus Predator, so long as all the rules are the same, it's still chess, right? If you changed it to the everybody moves so they jump over characters and then move around as checkers, it's then not chess anymore, right? It's not the representation that's changed, it's the rules. So the rules are what define different types of games, right? So you change the rules, you've changed the game. They define what's possible, they provide feedback and framing, and what we mean by game development and game design is usually designing the rules of the game, right? So what is the game you're making? We also have this idea of boundary, the edge of what is the game, so what's within scope and what's outside of scope. That's all part of designing the game. The boundaries, sometimes called the magic circle, is this idea that the rules that define the game happen within a space. So football is defined as happening within the field, right? It's not a game that you play outside of a soccer field, right? That's by definition where those rules happen. With boxing, for example, you're not allowed to normally hit people, but when you walk inside the boxing ring, suddenly there are now rules that allow you to do things that you wouldn't normally be allowed to do outside that magic space, right? So there's this interesting, the rules of the game operate within a boundary. Now, some augmented reality, some alternative reality games try and run the game inside the real world and subvert this idea of there being a boundary, and so they send you actual text messages, they use real world advertising, they use the real world as part of the game space, and that really subverts people understanding. Pokemon Go was a little bit, yes, is subverting some of that magic circle, but they were still happening inside the mobile, but they were subverting some of the location-based things for where is the game happening. And that's why some people were uncomfortable with Pokemon Go and felt that it was, they didn't want to be part of your game. So there are challenges. Okay, so we have graphics in games. You can even think of some sort of graphics as the toy in the game. People were playing with the oscilloscope and they started seeing that it looked like a tennis ball going back and forth across a net, and so they were playing with graphics, and that became a game. In fact, Angry Birds was people playing with the physics engine, the physics demo, that they were testing their 2D physics engine, and they found that all the developers were spending their time testing the physics engine rather than actually working on the game itself. And having seen that behavior, they thought, wait a minute, if testing the 2D physics engine is so much fun, how might we make that the game? The game is to test the physics engine by having a stack of things fall down. And then we get Angry Birds. So you can have database games. So for example, Travian is not really a game. It's just a database that has a graphical front end. And if you look at it, it's actually you're just making SQL queries into a database, and it just shows you the state of the database with just pretty graphics. And it has a timer that looks at the rows that you've got in your database and then updates them based on interaction rules. So sometimes what you think of as games might actually, basically from a mechanics point of view, just be a database that you're putting entries into. Certainly some of the merge mansion-y things feel very much like they're a database game where all you're doing is merging things, which is just changing rows in a database and there's no real game interaction going on. What makes a good game? So Travian is still it's still a game. Absolutely, it's a database game, right? Or do you mean Pokemon Go? Where no, it's still a game, right? Interacting with the world still makes a game. All of these are games, right? I'm saying these are games, right? Well, that one less so, but certainly Travian is a game. Pokemon Go is a game, right? So they are games. They're just a database game. I'm just saying that the representation often people is used to hide the mechanics of the game is in a pretty visual, which might not be, yeah, which it might be quite a long way away from the mechanics of what's actually happening. So making a good game, it absolutely all of you can make a game very very easily, right? What is hard is making good games, right? Good games depend on the player and what they want. So a good game isn't defined by the developer; it's defined by the people who play the game. And a good game is not necessarily a fun game. It might be an engaging game. It might be a rewarding game. It might feel important. So there's lots of other aspects that you could measure the quality of a game. But it's not simply I made it, so it's good. It is something that has to happen from people playing your game. So one of my colleagues, Ernest Adams from years ago, his the way that he thought of games was, what does the player do, right? So the 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 difference between a game and a story is that in a game you have to ask, what does the player do, right? What are the actions of the player? It's not about, it's aliens in space and there's they're invading Earth and they're having combat with the people of Earth and they're going to destroy the main cities and they've got these amazing spaceships and they use electromagnets to do it. Like, yeah, okay, that's all the story. What does the player do? That's what's the game bit of that, right? So, and when we think of what the player does, one of the things we have to think about is what are the hygiene factors of the game, right? So, you can make a good game a bad game by basically having very bad interactions, right? So if the player can't do what the player wants to do, right? Once you know what the player's doing, can they do it? Does it crash? Is it laggy? Are there inconsistent implementations? Standard quality of life things. Is there hacking of the multiplayer so that anytime you play the game, it just breaks, right? So you can make a tasty meal bad by making it poisonous, right? If you get food poisoning from a meal, it doesn't matter how lovely the spices were, it was a bad meal because it made you sick, right? So we've got to think of these kind of hygiene factors, how we make good games and how we support the player being able to make the choices that they want to make in what they are doing as a player. So there is some design poison as well in games. So when you are designing your games, one of the things I want you to think about is don't make your initial challenge too hard. Think of a very easy way into a game, right? Your testers have been playing once your testers are playing your game for a long time, they are no longer good testers, right? We often call them Kleenex testers, where you bring them in, you use them once and you throw them away. Meanwhile, the player keeps on playing no matter how much poison there is. Yeah, there are high punishment games. Some people like the capsaicin. They like the I've forgotten my Scoville units. That's it. They don't care how big the Scoville units are. The pain is part of their enjoyment. So sometimes yes, some of them are just really high punishment games. So that's a small subset, right? So very small group of players want to be punished, and so actually, some of the Souls games are super punishing. But for some people, that challenge is what they want to overcome. But recognize that that's actually a small subset, and unfortunately, game developers tend to be have a higher proportion of people who are willing to do stupid and crazy and really hard, difficult things. Making a game is difficult, and so we tend to be more likely to play those games. But that's not the majority. We're not making games for other game designers. We're making games for normal human beings, right? So understanding what other people think is a really important aspect in game design. having clear paths and objectives. Often I see game designers doing the whole, yeah, no, it's really like that. They have to work out that they have to like pull this lever and then walk 3 steps to the left and then push that lever. And if they don't know that, they can't get forward. Ha ha ha. And it's kind of, no, well, that's just, you've just ended the game for most of your players. Right? They won't find it fun. You might find it fun watching them fail at your game, but they're not going to find it enjoyable to keep failing and never know how to move forward. Right? And they're going to walk away. So, unfortunately, often when we're making games for normal human beings, we have to make it super obvious what's going on, well beyond what you would find enjoyable yourself, because you have to recognize that probably you, as a developer and as a game designer, are better at games than your players and have more persistence than most of your players and are more committed than most of your players. And so what you feel might be an interesting level of challenge is probably too difficult for most of your players, right? And something that is blindingly obvious to you might actually not be clear to them at all. Okay, so just as we finish up, we've got 5 minutes left. So when we look at graphics in games, we can think of these as being text-only games. Kind of zero-dimensional games, because you're not playing in a two-dimensional space, you're reading text. One-dimensional games like Snakes and Ladders, not a game. One-dimensional though. Monopoly is a one-dimensional game. It's a loop, but it's kind of one-dimensional, right? And you're only ever moving forward, so it's not even like one-dimensional back and forth. It's almost like a half-dimensional game. Flappy Bird. It looks like it's 2D, but it's actually you're just moving forward constantly, and so you're actually just moving up and down, and so that is an up and down, and so that's probably a full one dimension. Chess, top-down games, side scrollers are two-dimensional. You get games which are two-dimensional but have layers, so they're vaguely three-dimensional. So you get this kind of 2.5D. Where there's a couple of layers that you can do, mostly 2D, and then you get full 3D games. So, as I said, I don't think Snakes and Ladders is a game. There is no player choice, and so I don't think it's a game. Topologically, it's just a line, right? This is the line that is the Snakes and Ladders. So there's zero-dimensional gameplay on a two-dimensional board, because you don't actually play the game of chess. And you can see the yellow square moves to the white square, the red square, then the blue square has a connection up here to a green square, and a connection directly forward to green, and then a yellow, then a white, and then the red, and the red has an arc coming back from the yellow and landing you on the red, right? So you can just map out the game. Mancala has a one-dimensional with a little bit of a loop, right? Again, a game without randomness, so you make choices and then you interact, right? So it's a game with no randomness and a one-dimensional gameplay when you pick up a scoop and you place them in the other locations and into the end, and then they get to make a choice. So it is just a straight, I choose, you choose, I choose, you choose, no randomness. Many of the itch.io games are 2D games. Congregate also has a lot of 2D games. Some of them were Flash and are now dead, but they're mostly being replaced by web-based gaming environments. Go and have a look at a whole bunch of 2D games, right? So Itch has some really good ones. I know there's some controversy over Itch cancelling a whole bunch of games because of Visa and MasterCard. We can talk ethics and game ethics next week. 2.5D is this kind of a 2D, but then there's kind of layers and parallax that give it a kind of 2.5D. ISO is a 30-degree camera. It kind of looks it looks 3D. Usually it's 2D gameplay. So these had 2D gameplay, but had kind of 2.5D graphics. ISO games, 2D gameplay on the flat surface with a look of 2.5D. And then you have this parallax, which is 2D, but it looks layered and almost 3D because of that parallax and layers. Okay, so I was just getting some ideas around some of the looks of games, how we talk about games. and some examples of representation, and then we have for next week. So, how many of you are interested in pitching a game that you actually want to make? I think it looks like we have about 30 in the class, so we're probably going to be making about 7 or 8 games. So I kind of need 7 or 8 of you at a minimum to pitch some games. If you don't, you're going to have to make games that I find fun, right? And that's not good for anybody. So, how many of you are thinking of making games? Or pitching your own a game? Excellent. We've got one. Yay! Do I hear 2? Do I hear 2? Might have to. Okay. Right. So, in the last couple of minutes, these are the things I want you to do. I want you to download Godot. I want you to start going through that Godot setup and play with Godot. Try and come up with some ideas. Really, really think about what you want to make, what you want to get out of this course. Even if you just come up with a, hey, I want to make a platformer game. I don't really have an idea for what's in the game, but I have an idea of, I really like platform games. These are the games I like. I'd like to combine some aspects of these games. So if you're interested, go to the game pitch, have a look through what you want to do there. Is networking too ambitious? No, networking is not too ambitious. I've now set up my server here so I can run it constantly, so we can, if absolutely necessary, we have a static IP address where you can run a server from, and we can do server-based games, and actually Godot networking, yeah, you can absolutely set up network games. Not a problem. Well, it is a problem, but it's a solvable problem. I mean, I made a networked multiplayer lecture game, so yeah, you can absolutely do it on Vibes. That's going to be fine. And again, I want those ideas because what I want to do is I want to, and like along with my, you're going to choose what group you're going to be in. I want you to go through, and I want you guys to pitch some of these game ideas so that we can form groups around those ideas. All right, so I'm giving you a week to, if you're not coming up with an idea, go and start using Godot and experiment with the Godot, so and either Unity or Unreal, so by next week you can make the decision, actually I want to use Godot for making this game, or actually I think I want to use Unity, or I think I want to use Unreal. My preferences are Unreal and Godot because I'm currently teaching those and I use them, but if you want to use Unity, that's also fine, or another game engine if you want to. It's just I have less direct support for those. Okay, so is it clear what you need to do? Godot, think about what games you want to make. I'll send out an email with and put a link in Discord for your general demographics, so that I get an idea of what the class has done and what you're capable of, and as I build the groups, making sure that they've got a range of experiences. And then next week you will pitch games. We'll then you'll then submit your selections for the roles you want to play and the games you want to make, or the game you want to make, and the other people who you want to work with. Now you get to choose 3, up to 3 maximum, other people you'd like to work with, and you can veto 1 person. Okay, so maybe you can start working out who you might want to work with. If you don't know anyone, of course, you don't know anybody you want to work with, I will be making the team, so I will be putting people together, and that's why I limit it to 3, so people don't just form fully formed teams and move off. If you know that you have a fully formed team and that you desperately want to work together, email me and start talking to me about it. and I will see if that makes sense for you to have that team. And we might add other people to it if need be, because you might need additional skills. Okay. Any final questions before you guys all rush off to your next class? So the slides are already uploaded into. I left in last year's slides, but if we have a look here under the the 2025 version of IMT3, you see that there are lectures, and I've got the markdown is the lecture. The video and link isn't working yet, but that is this lecture and should be these slides if it ever decides to load. So if you also watch this repo, you'll see me. If you add a watch to this repo, you'll see me updating things. So yeah, so this lecture is already up there. Okay, so you've got the links, and you can click on the links from here and go out to. Oh, bother. I would have. Oh no, if you download the PDF, it doesn't do it in the preview mode. Sorry, if you download the PDF, you can click on the links. But yeah, so this was cloned from last year's repo, and so at the moment it still has a bunch of the lectures from last year. I've left them in because, and you can see that was done. I put that up yesterday. You can see these are the old lectures. But you know, if you want to skip ahead and see what I was talking about last year, I'll be updating all of these. But you know, these are, you've got access to the stuff we were talking about last year. I was turning some of them into Markdown so that you could have written Markdown documentation of what we're talking about, because sometimes slides aren't the best way of reading documentation. So it's up to you how we move on those, how we update those. Questions for Rainfriend, probably on Discord here. At me on Discord. Which would be the best channel? Yeah, general's probably not the best channel. What I'll do is I'll just add it now. I'll create a lecturer chat, lecturer chat, and a text chat for lecturer for chatting to me. So I've just added the lecturer chat. Oh, and misspelt it terribly. So lecturer chat. Save changes. So if you at me at the lecturer chat, or just directly add me as a friend and chat to me, that's probably reasonable. I still have access to my NTNU email, so you could email me, but at the moment I don't know how long. Well, I've only got that till the end of the month, unless they can give me back all my accesses. But so yeah, so Discord is probably going to work best. Okay. Any other questions? So go have a look around. You can see we have some of the so the lab, that's where I put the Godot setup. Documentation, there is documenting playtesting, game design, and game pitch. So that's where the game pitching is. And there's also a full, if you want, once we've picked your game, you'll then start moving and build a full game design document. So you'll fill out like that kind of document. So that's already there. And actually those groups are empty at the moment because we haven't made any groups. Okay. Hopefully that all makes sense. Hopefully you guys are all looking forward to making some awesome games. I'm looking forward to playing them. Cool. Now I'll put links in from the lectures. So for this, I'll try and get a link to the video here. The moment I don't think that goes anywhere. No, no, it doesn't go anywhere. It's just a broken link. I'll put links to where we put the videos from these lectures. Okay. Now these are ones I haven't done yet. So these are the old ones from last year. So into the future, they haven't happened yet, so don't trust them as being the future. Right? And if you want to change some of them, we can update and change them. We can change topics. We can change the way in which we do things. Right? I want you to learn as much as you can, so tell me what you want to learn. Great. Okay. But that, that gives you a framing for the sorts of things. That's what we did last year. And if we followed the same pattern, that's what we do. But I'm happy to change anything up. Yeah, no, we can see that. I'll prepare some of those for next week, and I'll see if I can find. I'll ask the people from last year which ones they're willing to share. Some of them are up on itch, some of them on Discord, so we can show you some of those. So yep, great. Okay. Oh, Joachim's typing and Sarah's typing. So the only disadvantage you have on Twitch, I can see your Twitch chat, is that you don't get to actually verbally jump in, right, and unmute yourself and start talking at me. So if you, I don't know how many of you actually want to talk. I'm assuming most of you just want to write chat. How long do we have on our projects? Well, I'm starting from next week, and it's the 15th of December. It's due. So, 4 months minus a week. So it's actually 3 months and 3 weeks. So, yeah, near the end of December. No, the form I will send you will have the usernames of other members of the class, and you have a drop down where you select the usernames of people you want to work with. So that will be part of the form. You don't need to send me emails for that. I have a standardized form. In fact, I have, if like you guys can all go now if you need to, but if I go and show you my sheets, I can show you the crazy group game group voting for this is my second year class, so there's 60 of them, but it has they have a form which they respond to, which gives me lots of data, and then I create groups, and these are groups with usernames, and then I have a whole bunch of information where go away. I have lots of individual information about what kind of game they're interested in, what role they're going to play, their abilities for their average programming ability and their managerial ability and their get ability, and I try and balance all of those out while moving people around. And I have, the kinds of games that people voted for. So we have like roguelikes had 13 first choices and 4 second choices. This year platformers were second, last year platformers were first, and they had 8 first choice platformers, had 7 shmups, turn-based games, 2D puzzle games, multiplayer, tower defense, procedure generated dungeon crawling, farming, bullet hell, AI town simulation kind of things. So yeah, and then I have a list of the choices of the remaining students, because what starts off when I have nobody in groups, I can see what's here, and then as I put people in groups, the what's remaining comes out. So for example, if I went into groups and I took one of the roguelikes, let's say that one, and I deleted it, when I go back into remaining, you can see there's a roguelike, another roguelike, and there was some farming and some platformer. But yep, so there was a roguelike there, and in the and if I go back to all votes, you can see now over here I have the roguelike have 3 total, right? So this is, yeah, so there's 2 first choices there and 2 first choices on farm simulation. So it could have been a roguelike, it could have been a farm simulation, but there was most second choices on the roguelike. So yeah, that's how I build these. But those people were more interested in working together than they were in so I also give you choices of what's important to you. But if I do that, that fills it up. So yeah, it's a big complex spreadsheet. Cool. Okay. Sorry, I'm already 10 minutes over time. So you guys all head away, and I'll send out some notifications once I get Blackboard back. And we'll see you next week with some game pictures. Stream ending. I will go and have a look at all the pending approvals and see if I can approve them. Okay. Night all. Bye.